Hello, Garland Nixon here, and we are with Dr. Jim Kavanaugh, and there's something going on. I don't know what the heck it is. Maybe a ceasefire, something's up. Let's talk. Hello, all, and here I am with Dr. Jim Kavanaugh, and things are going on right now. And of course, the first thing Dr. Jim brought up is, Garland, what the hell's going on with your beard? What the hell's going on with your beard? I told him, well, I was traveling, I was in Russia, and you got to grow a big beard when you're in Russia because it's cold. Back then, it wasn't cold. And then I was in Chechnya, and hey, everybody's Muslim. Got to have a beard in Chechnya. Yeah. You get beat up if you have a beard. No, the Chechens were very nice. And then I came back, and then I was sick as a dog, so I haven't been to the barber in 3 weeks. So I told him I probably look like a cross between Don King and Dick Gregory. So anyway, let's get going. Jim Kavanaugh, I'm trying to figure out what's going on here. Maybe you can help me out. I see various things being said about ceasefires. I see something says, now 2 minutes, it says that they've talked. Carol Levitt says there's been discussions, but nothing is final. Oh, here's what she said. No, she didn't say it. Nothing is final until it is announced by the president or the White House. Now we're saying, I'm hearing things that say there's some peace talks that have gone on. I've heard there's a ceasefire. I've heard the U.S. accepted. What are your thoughts on this, Jim?
I'm very surprised and confused. And, the Times is reporting that Pakistan and China have arranged or gotten agreement to a 25-day ceasefire. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And the astounding thing to me is I'm reading a statement from Trump. Trump said he agreed to the, not from, here we go. This is a report from White House reporter Tylee Pager or something. Trump said he agreed to the proposal by Pakistan, which calls for a 2-week ceasefire and the immediate opening of the Strait of Hormuz. Over the next 2 weeks, Trump said the United States will work on finalizing an agreement with Iran. Now, here's Trump's quote. Quote, the reason for doing so is that we have already met and exceeded all military objectives, of course. And are very far along with a definitive agreement concerning long-term, all quotes, peace with Iran and all quotes, peace in the Middle East. We received a 10-point proposal from Iran and believe it is a workable basis on which to negotiate. So if that's correct, that's kind of astounding because he's not saying Iran agreed to negotiate on our 15-point proposal. We negotiate on the basis of Iran's 10-point proposal. So that is a clear win for Iran. I mean, but, I guess I don't trust any of this staying, first of all, I deeply resent that China and Pakistan are taking the credit for what we have obviously done. The peace of the world. But, I mean, who knows what's going to come of this, but that's an astounding statement that implies to me that China might have said, as we were talking about earlier, China is going to put the pressure on Iran, got to go along with something, open the Straits of Hormuz, we'll guarantee that there'll be no more attacks on you. That, so this is my point, has been my point for a while now. That what Iran has achieved already is that the United States has been ejected from its assumed role as the chairman of diplomacy in the world and certainly in the Middle East. We're the honest brokers. We get everybody together. No, that's over. Now, if there's going to be some kind of agreement, it's going to be mediated and enforced by somebody else. And it's going to be China and Pakistan, China and Russia. It's going to be someone else. Now, China, what the implication of this is that China and Pakistan are saying, we're going to sit down and get something together and we will be the guarantors of that agreement, or someone will be among the guarantors of that agreement. The United States isn't going to be the guarantor of this agreement. That's the point. They're out of this, okay? And that's an astounding thing. Already, you know, American military power has been rendered not invulnerable. Clearly, you can resist it, but also American status in the world has changed already. Its status as the diplomatic dean of the world is gone, and other people are coming in to take its place. Now, what the problem is here,
I think I know what you're going to say.
you know, whoever's enforcing this ceasefire is going to have to enforce it on Israel as well as the United States. You know, Israel not going to want this. They'll like a ceasefire, but they're not going to like the idea of China and Pakistan are going to be the dean of the diplomacy in this situation, and they're going to want to screw this up. So this is only going to work if China and Pakistan or Pakistan enforce this ceasefire and enforce it on everybody, including Israel. And that's only going to work if the Americans enforce it on Israel, because Israel is going to do what it wants. And only if the Americans say something like, we will stop sending you arms if you break this ceasefire, will Israel not do it? So this is all, you know, the jumble of what's going on here. You know, there's all kinds of wild cards. We're going to have to see how this plays out. It's kind of astounding, though, and it's this much hopeful.
Well, here's the thing, too, Jim, and that is one of the things that has been established here is that Iran has the capacity to inflict pain, right? And so normally Israel and the U.S. like, you can't trust them. You know, they're going to do it. But if you know you're going to get a bloody nose, right? If you're already in deep trouble, I believe this, Trump wanted out bad because he's been it's been reported by Sky News every week. Yeah, he asked for a 48-hour ceasefire. The Iranians are like, no. Right. So a deal is leverage. Let me read this to everybody. This is what Iran is reporting from Iranian media. OK, Iran has declared. Now, here's what they say. Iran declares historic victory over U.S., saying enemy forced to accept its proposal. So they're rubbing it in a little bit. And they got a picture of Trump. And he ain't looking happy. Right. It says, quote, Iran has declared a historic and crushing defeat of the United States and the Israel regime after 40 days of war, announcing that Washington has been forced to accept a 10-point Iranian proposal that includes a permanent ceasefire, the lifting of all sanctions, and the withdrawal of U.S. combat forces from the region. In a statement addressed to the noble, great, and heroic nation of Iran, the Supreme National Security Council said the enemy had suffered an undeniable defeat and saw no way forward to submit to the will of the great nation of Iran in honorable accents of resistance. Boy, they're pouring it on, aren't they? I saw this, The announcement comes on day 40 of the U.S.-Israeli war of aggression on Iran, which began with the assassination of leader of the Islamic Revolution, Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei, and top-ranking commanders on February 28th. According to the statement, all right, everybody, listen up. This is what you want to hear. According to the statement, the United States has agreed to a 10-point proposal that fundamentally commits Washington to 1. Non-aggression against Iran. 2. Continued Iranian control over the Straits of Hormuz. 3. Acceptance of Iran's right to uranium enrichment. 4, I don't know how I'm going to count, but forget it. The lifting of all primary and secondary sanctions. 5, the termination of all UN Security Council and IAEA Board of Governors resolutions against Iran. Compensation for damages inflicted on Iran, the withdrawal of U.S. combat forces from the region, the cessation of war on all fronts, including against the Islamic resistance in Iran. They say Iran and the resistance have almost completely destroyed the American military machine in the region. True. They have inflicted crushing and deep blows on the vast infrastructure and capabilities of the enemy. True. So your thoughts on, they're saying a crushing defeat. If the U.S. accepted all of that, it was in fact a crushing defeat. I don't know. We'll see.
I do not believe the United States has accepted all. Trump is saying it's the basis for negotiations.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see. I'm sure. 99, 44, 100% sure it's the basis for negotiations. But the fact that they accepted the Iranian peace plan is the basis of negotiations and not the Trump 15-point peace plan. If they had said, oh, this is the basis for negotiations, we're going to go forward and negotiate on the basis of this would be ridiculous. But Iran threw that out. And, Trump himself is saying with the Iran 10-point peace plan is the basis for negotiations. It's astounding to me. I just see this now.
Okay.
Let me just see what I saw here. Excuse me. Iranian foreign minister said, agreed to Pakistan's proposal for a ceasefire and that attacks against Iran are halted. Iran will also, quote, cease their defensive operation for a period of 2 weeks. Safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz will be possible via coordinating with Iran's armed forces. So that's a statement from Arachi.
So they ain't giving it up. They're not saying they're giving it up. You got to go through our toll booth.
That's right. We'll you range with us. I'm going to bet they're going to say no Israeli ships are going through the Strait of Hormuz. But so again, this is something that I don't know what to say. I mean, Trump is unhinged enough and delusional enough that he can think he's going to try to portray it as victory, and we browbeat them, we intimidated them because I was going to blow up the whole civilization, and therefore they came for. And look, the Straits of Hormuz are open. I mean, that he's going to declare that because the Straits of Hormuz are open, he's won, which is crazy. But it's not going to fool the Israelis. It's not going to fool Lindsey Graham. And we got to see what happens. But I'm glad that people aren't being blown up. The people on those bridges, who occupied those bridges overnight. Hegseth and Trump aren't going to stop blowing them up because those people are on those bridges. So, it's going to be hard also to get back into it. Really, everybody's so pissed off about this. Every corner of the world, it's going to be hard. So I think it's a very positive thing, and we're going to have to see how it plays out. Of course, as again, everybody is, first of all, Trump himself is a wild card, but the real wild card is Israel. Because Israel's going to say, oh, we're going to assassinate. They'll go and assassinate a couple of people and try and screw this up. They're going to try to screw this up. Because the end game of this, look, if you think it through, and this is what China wants. This is what Pakistan wants. This is what all the Arab countries done. I said this in my article about this originally. This is Israelis' plan for after Gaza, they got to have a war in Iran. The danger for Israel here is that this is going to push for the two-state solution. Because if Iran says, you got to stop not only attacking us, but attacking Lebanon, and China wants them to stop attacking Lebanon, China is really pissed off about that. So really, this is back off from all this. We need now to really push for a peace. For the root cause of this is the Palestinian issue. And we have to push. And the answer to that the Chinese want, and that the Russians want, and that the quote unquote global community wants, and the Arab countries want, is the two-state solution. Not my favorite solution, not what I would say, but Israel has gotten itself into a position where there's going to be a lot of pressure all of a sudden to come to and that's exactly what they're going to try to avoid. That's why they're going to screw this up. I'm
looking at this. It says Israeli official to Haaretz. Israel will honor the ceasefire deal with Iran, but remains concerned over the deal. An Israeli source has told Haaretz that Israel will honor the ceasefire deal announced early Wednesday by U.S. President Donald Trump, but added that Jerusalem remains concerned over a possible deal and would like to have achieved more of the war's goals before any truce comes into effect. So right now, Israel's saying that they will honor, and I think that had to be as everybody knows that.
If the Americans insist on it, they will do it. If the Americans say by insisting on it, I mean, if you break this ceasefire, Israel, we're going to stop sending you arms. But
exactly.
I don't exclude the fact that Israel will say that, and then 3 days from now, there'll be an assassination of somebody, and that was just a little thing we did. That didn't really break the ceasefire. Look, they say they're abiding by a ceasefire in Gaza. They are not. They said for a year they're abiding by a ceasefire in Lebanon. They were not. So I don't trust that the Israelis say that. But, what the Israelis do depends on what the Americans do. And really, it's exactly. Yes. If the Americans punish Israel for breaking the ceasefire, then they won't do it. But I don't think that. I hope that's the case, but I doubt that's the case. So we're going to see. There's going to be a lot of pressure in Israel from Netanyahu and the people to his right, who are a lot of them, to say no. We just got to go. If we find a target, we're going to hit him. If we find someone we can assassinate, we should do it.
Well, there are a couple of things, and that is, this is an extraordinary circumstance because the U.S. has taken a lot of punishment. And one of the things that, look, there's the kind of deal that says we're still going to hit you if you can't really defend yourself. But if you can punish us bad, so the U.S. wanted out, not because we like the Iranians, but because they were kicking our asses. That we lost, how many planes did we lose in a day? We don't even know. Somewhere upwards of 10 planes in one day. It seemed pretty clear that what the Iranians had done was they had a long-term strategy, and they kind of husbanded their resources, shall we say, regarding their air defense, and they were learning and adapting, and they were getting better, and it was getting real dangerous to fly. It was getting real. Every day you were hearing about planes shot down, and then it got bad. Ships hit. This new one, one of those Marine ships, the 2K, one of them has been hit. Did you know that? Yeah. So this thing was, anything in that region was in danger of getting hurt. So it's one thing to make a deal with somebody, but when somebody has the capacity to protect themselves, like Iran can say, I don't care who, we will enforce the deal. If you don't do it, we're going to start knocking the hell out of you. I think that's something that we don't usually encounter.
Israel assassinated some scientists. We're going to close the Straits of Hormuz.
Yes, exactly.
You got to put Israel in a box, and we have to be assured that they're in the damn box, and that's what you got to. But again, that's now you've got China and Pakistan saying to the United States, you have to put Israel in the damn box, or you're going to, this is a new world. And before in the Middle East, it was the Americans who came in. Oh, we're going to tell them, we're going to negotiate. We'll be the honest broker between the Palestinians and the Israelis, and between the Saudis and everybody else. And this is baloney now. This is over. So this isn't, and we're going to have to see, because again, the UN has nothing to do with this. I mean, the UN is an absolute paper tiger. Only if China and Russia and the Americans, if they can force the Americans not to veto something. But, as long as the Americans have the veto and willing to use it, nothing's going to come from the UN. But there has to be a military power that says, and as you say, Iran itself is that power now. Iran itself has the military power to say, if you break the ceasefire, we close the Straits of Hormuz again. Nobody gets through. And we're not going to come and we're not going to come back to the same negotiation. We're going to come back to, you must accept in advance that sanctions are gone, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So
there's another part of it too. And people are like, well, the United States just wants a deal so they can rearm and stuff like that. Wait a minute. Russia is just a little teeny boat ride away. They ain't the only ones that are going to rearming. So I'm going to guarantee you right now that there are ships full of drones, ships full of rounds, ships full of missiles, and you name it. So right now, what Iran's doing is they're rearming. Russia's, what is that? The Caspian Sea or whatever? Boom. So it also gives Iran the opportunity to look at the things that were hit and say, China, Russia, boom, this and okay, let's redo, let's refix, let's re-up, you know what I'm saying? To look at what we have, find new targets. So while, in fact, here's the other part. Okay, the U.S. is going to rearm. Where are they going to put this stuff? They sure can't bring it to the Middle East because it'll be blown to smithereens if the war starts again. So they are in a position where they're forced to bargain. I'm looking, let's see.
That's going to be an interesting question, whether the U.S. can bring materiel and personnel into those bases again.
Yep. What is this? Hezbollah delivers one of the worst beatings of the war. Well, I've read a lot. Israel was taking a beating. They did what they did, but Israel, what did they lose? 160 or something Merkava tanks?
Well, that's what they say. I mean, I hope it's true, but I'm kind of skeptical about that. Here's air raid sirens have gone off in Israel at least twice since President Trump announced that he had agreed to a conditional ceasefire with Iran.
Good. Maybe Iran will get a couple more licks in, but
well, because they're still saying, as you say, the White House said it's in discussions. Nothing is final until announced by the president. So has he announced it officially?
I don't know. You know, the other thing is, and this is something that I've heard myself. I'm just going to put it out there, but from somebody, I heard that. Have you heard that pretty much all of Trump's cabinet had told him don't do it? Have you heard that?
No.
That he had like near unanimous that most of his cabinet. Now I would imagine Hegseth, well, he was drunk. He don't even remember what he said. But as far as the rest of them, you know, that was probably it. He probably just barfed. But I mean, the Hegseth, he's so drunk. He probably looks like me with this beard. You know what I mean? Looks like a scrubbly old homeless person. But if that is true, and it wouldn't surprise me because, you know, Trump's got problems because he's going to have military people that resigned or got fired. He's got this story now about, now I'm reading that Iran said, as far as the, Iran said something to the effect of they knew what was going on with this move with the special forces and they set a trap.
Yeah.
Have you heard that it was a trap, which makes sense because they told everybody in the world, yes, we're going to do a special operation on Easter weekend and blah, blah, blah. And Iran's like, oh, really? I wonder where you're going to do that. Look at that.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah, it's very interesting. Ceasefire, stand down from the, okay. Yeah, I'm trying to see if there's a time on this, when the ceasefire actually officially begins. So, you know, yeah, will the Americans be able to restock their bases in the Middle East? That's the question.
Hell, their bases are blown to smithereens. Well, I don't even think they can, you know, restock them. They have to rebuild them. I mean, have you seen some of those pictures? They're black and burned down husks.
Well, I hope so. But what I'm saying is they could come in and are they going to put troops back into those bases? Are they going to repave the runways? Whatever. You know, these are. But you know, these Persian Gulf countries should say no. We don't want that anymore. You know, we're out of this. We're happy that we haven't had the more massive damage that we would have had from Iranian missiles, and we want to rebuild what was damaged, and we don't screw around with your games with Iran anymore. You know, and this requires China and Pakistan and countries like that to say to the Persian Gulf countries, we are going to deal between we will mediate your relations with Iran. Like what China did. China had set up in last year talks between Iran and Saudi Arabia, and they went well. And again, it's the Americans and the Israelis that want to screw that up. And China and Pakistan and Russia, whoever, going to come in and say to these Persian Gulf countries, this is over. It's not the United States that's going to decide what happens between you and Saudi Arabia and Iran. We're going to sit down with you and Saudi Arabia and UAE and Iran, and we'll mediate talks with you. And the Americans are out of it. So that's the kind of thing that if that happens, that's a really powerful and important thing. Because we're not in China. We're not in here to make a fight. We're not in here to dictate policy, to tell who's Israel must be the hegemon of the Middle East, and Iran can't do this and can't do that, but Israel can. We're going to be fair about this. So that's a huge thing. And it's happened. It's already happened. I think this is, it's
almost like two guys getting a fight in a bar, and people are watching them fight it up, and one guy gets the guy down, and he's pummeling him, and everybody grabs him and says, "Hey, let him up. He's had enough. You made your point. You won, right?" It's almost like Iran in a way. It's like, okay, Iran, you made your point. You shot their ships down. You hit their ships. You humiliated them. You blasted their bases. You closed the Straits of Hormuz. You made your point. In a way, you got to say Iran made their point for this reason. One of the things you just said, yes, well, they bring stuff to the bases. If you're Iran, you can say you can bring stuff back to those bases if you want to. Just load them up all you want to. But the end of 2 weeks, if this ain't done, the stuff that you got on the bases is going to end up in the same place that the other stuff that you had on the bases. So the reality is this. whether we have those bases or not. What the hell good are those bases? They're not bases. They're targets. We can't defend them. We don't have decent air defense to defend them. Their hypersonic missiles, their drones will overwhelm, and we're running out of air defense stuff anyway. So at this point, those bases aren't even real. What is the point? The bases, like, we could put cardboard pictures of bases and of officers around, because if you're Kuwait, yeah, we've got an American base. Boy, they'll keep us safe. So really, the bases don't exist anymore, do they?
No, you're absolutely right. They're nothing but targets. They're nothing but troubles for those countries. Those countries have seen very clearly they are not there to protect you. They're there to be part of the American-Israeli offensive against whatever the Americans and Israelis want to do. They're there to put everything is in the Middle East from the American point of view is there to protect Israel. They're not there to protect Saudi Arabia or UAE. They're there to protect Israel in some fashion or another, and to protect America's own interests. But America can get its interests taken care of in other ways. But really, they're there to make sure that nobody tries to deny that Israel is the hegemon of the region. But I was thinking a couple of things that are interesting. I think you were talking about whether that the cabinet was opposed to this. I'm wondering, and I hope it's the case, that maybe military officers said, we will resign. If you give us these orders, we will. Some officers said, we won't follow certain orders. That would put an end to it. And I wonder if we're going to hear something like that. That would be powerful. And the other thing I'm wondering if we're going to find out, because I don't believe that there weren't American casualties.
Please, yeah.
In that firefight, in what happened over the weekend. And I think we're going to start finding out that they were lying about that. If that comes out, that they were casualties, and I mean KIA, in that action, and they lied about it, then that's going to be another thing that's going to be a big obstacle for them ever going back in. And so I hope those things are, I don't hope it's true that people got killed, but if it is the case,
the truth comes out.
What's that?
That you hope we hope the truth comes out.
The truth comes out, exactly. And I do hope that there were military generals and officers who said we will not obey these orders if you give them to us.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think this thing might have started getting really bad internally. Where something like that was going on, maybe members of Congress were starting to say, hey, wait a minute. You know what I mean? This is getting out of hand, guys. And, members of Congress, senior members of Congress might have started calling the White House saying, we are starting to have a problem. This thing's going off the rails and we can't back you up anymore. But, may have started saying, look, it's gone too far. We got to get out. You know what I mean? We got to cut our losses. I was talking to Mario Nawfal. I was on his show the other day, and I said to him, I said, look, I said, we were talking about the sunk cost fallacy, right? And I said, you're a businessman. Sometimes you're in a business and it's losing $1,000 a week or something, and you say, hey, I could try to make this thing work, but it's still going to cost me $1,000 a week. I've sunk X amount of dollars in, get out. And he's like, oh yeah. He says, and that's one of the hardest things to do. And I said, yeah. He says, but you got to do it. I'm like, exactly. And we kind of were able to I was able to at least get him to admit, yeah, that's where we are. That you can't open the Straits of Hormuz. You can't win. All you can do is continue to fight. Why keep losing stuff at this point? Whatever, take your medicine and walk away. And I think probably there were people saying that. But as you said, I think the last straw might have been what he said. And it's likely other people from around the world might have been calling people here saying, hey, man, what the hell's going on in your country? This thing's going bad. We can't continue to support you. We can't justify. And he was attacking South Korea. Yeah, they're no friends of ours. And the Japan screwed them too. And I'm like, so now he's going on. I don't want to be aligned with these countries for war with someone, but now you're just attacking everybody. He was going bananas.
Yeah. And what last weekend proved, and I did see a thing that when he decided to do this in February. He had Netanyahu and the Israelis telling him, "Oh, this is going to go down this way. It's going to be fine. The Iranians don't have that many missiles. We're going to have an uprising. Blah blah. Last a couple of weeks, maybe this and that." And the generals were saying, "Well, that's baloney. You can't believe that." And blah 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 blah. But he went along with it. And they said that. J.D. Vance said, "Well, I don't, I don't really like this idea, but I'll support you." So nobody really said, "No, don't do this." But I did see, I forget what it was, that about this weekend operation, that people were saying, this is not going to work. And he was getting that. Some people were saying that. So again, what that's demonstrated, that was their plan for starting some kind of ground operation, some kind of beachhead, some kind of capture of this or capture of that. And when that blew up, then you sit back, and the generals certainly at that point, and especially when they hit that Marine ship, I say the Tripoli, nobody's getting anywhere near. You're not going to send 3,000 landing ship. They didn't get anywhere near that. So at that point, the military has got to be saying, and I hope they're saying out loud, we cannot defeat Iran with conventional means. So Trump then had two choices, either back off or nuke. Right. And he sounded like he was going to nuke. That's what he sounded like. And he wanted to sound like that because he'll say at the end of the day, whatever happens, he'll say, "Oh, yes, I told them I was going to nuke them. Therefore, they backed off." So but this was the choice that was then clear to everybody. You're not going to defeat Iran by a nuke with a conventional war. So even the Israelis were saying it. So that's the choice then. You can only do one of two things. And J.D. Vance got up and said, "Well, don't forget we have tools we haven't used yet." They're implying they're about to nuke Iran, and that's what they would have had to done. That's what they would have had to do if they wanted to think they could defeat Iran in some way. And so that was the choice they faced. They chased nuke or back off, and I hope it looks like they're backing off.
And it's not over until it's over. So that's a 2-week thing. But I feel like this. As bad as Trump wanted out, and he wanted out bad, and a lot of people wanted out. A lot of people, you and I, I think you have the 2 weeks, and if they don't come to an agreement by then they can always say 2 more weeks. You know what I mean? I mean, you've got the hostilities started, and Iran has made their point. And they've changed the dynamic. I also think like this. You probably heard Russia and China. Russia said very, very early to Israel, "You better not use nukes." I think Russia and China had probably said, if you do that, this is a whole different world we're living in now, and we might have to act in a different way. Things could get violent. So I think they knew that was World War III. Yeah. They start throwing nukes as World War III at that point. And, a while back, actually, Steve Witkoff gave away the game because Steve Witkoff said, "Well, look, if anybody on Earth drops a nuke anywhere, all the markets will instantly crash," which he's probably true. So I think they were. But, and I saw people in the chat, "I wouldn't trust them." Let me tell you, here's the other part. You're not taking the punches. You know what I mean? It's easy to say Iran shouldn't, I wouldn't trust them. You're not the one taking punches. They're taking punches, and they have fought more valiantly than I could ever imagine. And if they determine, you know what, we made our point, we're going to chill for a while, I'm going to respect. You got to respect the hell out of Iran.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing what they've done. I'm astounded by it. And, and as you say, they're not giving anything up, and they have the power to enforce this. They have the power to say, "Oh, you screw around with us, guess what? The Straits of Hormuz are closed again," and whatever. So this is, I say I don't put it past Israel to say, "Oh, we find an IRGC commander in the open, we're going to assassinate him." I don't put it past them at all. But if they do that, Iran has the power. Iran isn't giving up anything. This is not the same as when they agree to the Board of Peace with Trump and in charge of the Board of Peace, that's a ceasefire, and Hamas agreed to that ceasefire, or anybody agreed to that ceasefire. That's not the same kind of thing. This is a different kind of ceasefire. This is a ceasefire which is not being mediated or enforced by the United States, but by China and Russia, by China and Pakistan in this case, and by Iran itself. Iran has the means to support. Look, Hamas cannot attack Israel. Israel is not obeying the ceasefire in Gaza. It's blowing the crap out of Gaza still. It's preventing food again and baby formula from getting into Gaza. And Hamas doesn't have the ability to say, oh, we're going to open it up. That's
right.
And doesn't have the ability, but Iran does it. Demonstrated that it does. That's the problem. That's why, in this case, it's the American-Israeli side that has wanted and needs a ceasefire more than Iran does. It's true that they need it more than Iran does, but Iran is not going to be as hurt by it either, because they can enforce it. So it's going to be very interesting to see. This is a different dynamic in the world, and it's great to see. It's great to see that the Americans are not anymore the people, the country you turn to mediate things and to work out things. They're out of it. They're a player that has been put in its place, and will be kept in its place by China and Pakistan and/or by Iran itself.
You know, let me ask you this, and I think this, and maybe I'm wrong. How does this affect the Ukraine conflict? A couple of things. Number one, the U.S. has nothing to give Ukraine anymore. We got nothing. We don't have a bullet. We can't send them a care package. We've spent everything and probably won't. Europe doesn't have much. U.S. is out of the Ukraine thing. I think and the EU is trying to figure out how they're going to get enough gas and oil to make it. I think this, it's hard to say, but I'm just ask you, how do you think this changes the dynamic, if at all, with this Ukraine conflict?
Well, I think it already did.
Okay.
I think, that ship has sailed, so to speak. That horse is out the door, because what Iran found out was that the United States is going to, Israel is more important than anything, and that they're going to and Europe found out, and NATO and Ukraine. It should be immensely important to the United States, and it is immensely important. But when push comes to shove, Israel got everything it needed, and they have nothing left for Iran. And look, they took weapons from all over the world, from South Korea, in order to bring them into the theater to support what was essentially the Zionist project against Iran. So that's already demonstrated. Iran, and they've used up a lot of weapons. They didn't bring them. As you say, they can't replace these things. These Patriot, what do they have? They make 20 to 30 Tomahawks a year or something. They use 600 of them. So there's Iran, Ukraine has to know that I'm 100% sure the United States is still supporting them, still giving them intelligence, still on their side, doesn't want them to lose. But at this point, they know Ukraine has to know that the United States is not going to stop them from losing, and Europe has to know that too. And so Zelensky's in a very desperate situation, and we'll have to see. I think he's going to I think he's already trying to extend the war by getting the Baltic states involved with drone strikes against Russia, and he's trying to hit so he can hit targets in Leningrad, et cetera, and St. Petersburg. So, but it's going to be dangerous. That's not over. Nothing's over till it's over. And we're going to see, but I think, it's bad for Ukraine. And it was bad for Ukraine from the moment the United States turned its attention to the Israeli-Iran war.
Yeah. Amazing footage flooding out of Iran. Massive crowds of Iranians cheering, blazing their car horns, waving flags, celebrating. I thought they were supposed to be celebrating the overthrow of the evil regime.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing.
They were gonna hide the American pilot, like the French would hide an American pilot during World War II. Oh, they love the American pilot who came to bomb them. Look, Kuwaiti army said its air defenses were detecting missile and drone attacks. I wouldn't put it past the Israelis to do false flag attacks to blow this up.
Yeah, it looks like.
Oh wait, The Pakistani prime minister said in a social media post that the United States and Iran, quote, along with their allies, had agreed to an immediate ceasefire. He said the ceasefire applies everywhere, quote, including Lebanon and elsewhere, end quote.
Wow.
Wow.
That would really be something. That would, and what it would mean was that the Iranians forced, and it's what I put it like this. You said it, Alistair Crook said, a number of people said it. Sometimes people got to fight. There are people that's the only way they'll get it, that they ain't going to learn, that they got to get their ass kicked. You know what I mean? They ain't going to stop until somebody punches them in the snoot. And I think that you guys were right, that there was just no way to get Israel or the U.S. to do anything. You had to fight them, and they had to be militarily defeated.
Yep.
And now that's where we are.
I know. I was on Press TV last night, in fact, and saying the same thing. I had said it before, and they said, you were saying this before, that, we're going to take hits and we're going to fight. I said, yeah. I said, but, now that you've decided to fight, now that you've given up on playing the game of these negotiations they had decided to fight, look what's happening. It's you're doing a good job. And again, I wasn't saying I said again, you're going to get hit. Don't think this is over. You're going to keep getting hit, and you're going to. But look, you're achieving something here, and this is sometimes you got to fight.
Yeah, I don't. Well, I put it like this: I haven't seen anything yet that says Iran has to get rid of their ballistic missiles.
Exactly.
Stop enriching uranium. Stop supporting their proxies. All of that stuff. Not a single thing.
There's nothing of an objective. None of the objectives that the Americans and Israelis claimed they were going into this war for have been achieved, or are going to be achieved. What they're going to get at best is he's going to tout it. He's going to tout the Iranians may agree to nuclear to NPT inspections, and against nuclear weapons, as long as they can enrich their uranium. They may agree to that again, but that's going to have to be done again, overseen by someone else than the United States, and no end of all sanctions right away. Not, we'll end sanctions a year after if you behave well. They've got to they might agree to that and to open the Straits of Hormuz, but they're not going to give up their uranium enrichment. They don't give up. And what Trump will say is, look, I did a better JCPO than Obama did. That's what he's going to say. He's say, I got Iran under control, so they won't get a nuclear weapon better than Obama did. That's what he's going to say. And that's fine. Let him say it. And let stupid people believe that. But what he'll do at best is get another JCPOA that's less rigorous.
He ain't getting nothing. He ain't getting nothing like that. He ain't getting no JC. He will get nothing out of the Iranians. I think. Well, I think what the Iranians will say.
I don't think Iran should talk about nuclear weapons at all.
I don't think they will. Yeah, I think they'll say Israel talks about them.
But I think that China and Pakistan and Russia will say, all right, agree to regular NPT instructions, now a regular NPT protocol, not any special, but you're part of the NPT, agree to stay in the NPT and agree to have whatever inspections that requires.
I'm reading this. The American Special Forces, this is reported by Iran, fell into a trap set by Iran's armed forces. New details emerging on the failed Isfahan operation. Iranian sources now confirmed this was not a pilot rescue mission. It was a raid on a nuclear facility. 0 hour was set at the White House under Trump's direct supervision. The landing site, an abandoned airstrip, was chosen specifically for its proximity to an Isfahan nuclear site. Generals who warned against the operation were fired days before it launched. And Trump said at the press conference, well, there was people in the military didn't want you to do it, but we did it anyway. Iran let the first C-130 land and the commandos disembark, then sprang the trap when the second aircraft approached. Little bird helicopters never got airborne. U.S. jets bombed their own equipment to prevent capture. Personnel fled so fast they left their ID documents behind. Iranian sources call it worse than Tabbas 1980, and the fallout will affect Trump's political future for years. That's what I'm reading. Well, we don't know. I do think that it's going to come out the number of people that were killed.
Yeah, look. There was a thing on Press TV. They had a picture of looked like a burned body.
Yeah,
in the cockpit of a plane or something, and the Americans could have grabbed all the bodies and taken them out, as quick as possible. But I'd just be surprised if there weren't Americans killed in that action. And so we'll find that'll be interesting if we get some investigative reporters, maybe Seymour Hersh or somebody who will come out and tell the story. But it was the final stamp on the end of the idea of we're going to defeat them with a military operation, with a beachhead, with a seizure of an island, with any kind of seizure of anything. We're not going to defeat Iran conventionally. And as you say, if that's true, and I hope it is true that the generals were fired because they said we're not going to do that. We're not going to be part of this game. So that's good, and that exonerates them. They certainly come out of this. I think we may see Hegseth go.
Yeah,
he's going to have to. Hegseth is going to be the scapegoat, and not the scapegoat. He deserves to go.
Well, Trump set him up early. Did you see the early setup where Trump said something like, "Well, Pete really wanted to do this," and Pete was saying, "Let's go," and I'm like, "Oh man, when this goes bad." Old drunken sneaky Pete. Old sneaky Pete. He's the alcoholic of the crew. So he's the alcoholic as the guy that's always going to get blamed because he was drunk. He don't remember what he said and what he didn't say. So he's going to be an easy mark. So, but I think we're looking at I don't know, Jim. This is we'll see what happens overnight. We were, a lot of people lost a lot of sleep. A lot of people were like, "Oh crap, is everything going to go to hell today?" And yesterday, my thing on Mario's show was, I was like, he said, "What do you think?" I said, "You are what your record says you are." And Trump's record says he goes, "I'm going to kill you. I'm going to tear you up. I'm going to blow you up tomorrow at 4 p.m." And either he says, "Oh, I never said that. I don't remember it," or he backs out, or he gets a deal, or he does something. I said, so my opinion was, I didn't think he was going to. I never thought he was going to do it.
Yeah.
So, well, all right, Jim, tell everybody where they can find you.
Nice day. My Substack, which is on the screen, and on X at the Polemicist _. And I also have a Rumble channel and YouTube channel. So Substack's the best place to find me. All
right. Well, everybody, I will be looking, and I'm going to have, in fact, I'm going to have what's his name? I'm going to have Andre Martiano on in 40 minutes at 9, and we're going to be talking about the actual military stuff, like why in the world the U.S. lost this thing. So, he wrote a book, and his book was called, I'll tell you what his book was called, Losing Military Supremacy.
Yeah,
that's it. Losing Military Supremacy. That was the name of Andre Martiano's book. And so that's what I named my show. So I'll be back on at 9 to talk about losing military supremacy. How appropriate, but perfect timing. Well, Jim, I don't know about those damn Pakistanis, but I think they got to give you and I a little bit more credit. I think we might have saved the world.
We've been solving the problems of the world for years now. All right.
All right, man. I'll talk to you. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot. Hey, thanks to all my Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee and PayPal. Thanks for everybody who helps keep this show going. And if you can afford it, that's great. Also, of course, if you want to email or whatever you want to email, there's a P.O. box there. So you can snail mail me too. Thanks a lot, everybody. Share this on all your social media platforms. We're out.